The Horror Eternal presents Bone of My Bones, Part 1. The story I am about to tell may seem at first nothing more than a bitter social satire, but it holds no such aspiration. It is simply a tale of relentless horror, and it's all true, every word. Noonish. I cut out of work for my lunch break a little early. I'd been fending off a rush of anxiety all morning. Had to get out and walk, clear my head. Couldn't eat, no desire. Picked up a boba tea and headed over to the park about 10 blocks away. I was wandering around trying to stay in the shade, easily mistaken, I'm sure, for just another roaming crackhead. But in my case, that's just what I do, working shit out in my head. A sudden flash of movement snapped me out of my introverted zone. Large groups of people in the park running, pushing, their screams sparking the air, fleeing something, some commotion. I focused my eyes down to the other end of the park and saw something moving fast, swinging and stabbing, arms flailing. It was a rather large woman, and she was attacking a group of picnickers on the lawn who'd clearly been caught off guard, defenseless. Bodies lie in the grass. Others tried to run and were struck down. I could see a glint of something in the raging woman's hand, probably a knife. There was blood everywhere. The assailant led into the falling ones with a rabid fervor, then sprung up to chase others nearby who had been foolish enough to stop and watch. This went on for at least 2 or 3 excruciatingly long minutes until a group of 5 cops came running into the park and surrounded her as she swung a small child above her head. One of the cops ran forward and tackled the woman, freeing the hostage. The other officers piled onto the struggling attacker, and a staccato burst of gunfire peppered the air, and the madness ceased. So much for calming my nerves with a leisurely stroll through the park. I returned to work with a whole new set of anxietal issues to stew over. I'd been in my head over my recent breakup with my girlfriend of 4 years. A breakup I wasn't expecting. Ambush would be my way of describing it. Somehow, factoring in a gory real-life murder scene was like dumping my anxiety in a panic blender and hitting puree. It left me feeling mentally and emotionally paralyzed. When I returned, several of my coworkers noticed something was off just by looking at me. I can only imagine what they saw in my face. When I told them what I'd witnessed, word spread through the office quickly, and before I knew it, I was surrounded by a crowd hungry for every lurid detail. No regard for the impact it had so obviously had on me. The sudden gathering didn't help my anxiety, but I reluctantly chummed their waters as I described the way the cops took the mad woman down and how they point-blank filled her with bullets in the struggle. Agnes, a rather large lady in her early 40s, I didn't really know her, just a face I saw around the office, began to get agitated, her voice raising in protest. "You think that's okay?" she bellowed in an accusatory tone. "You think that's funny?" "No, I'm just explaining what," I started. Then she shouted over me. "Man, you think it's funny because it's a woman. Cops kill crazy women, right? It's always the woman who's crazy." I tried to answer. "No, I didn't say that." "You might as well have. That's what you meant." She cut me off. I noticed thick beads of sweat were running down her forehead, and she was shaking. I kept my mouth shut, but a couple of the others piped up, telling her to settle down. One of the other women asking if she was feeling okay. Agnes's face blew up bright red, and she let out a soul-piercing scream of frustrated rage and stormed off down the hall back to her office. We all looked at each other, stunned and confused, as we could hear the sound of furniture being turned over and thrown around as she grunted and yelled unintelligibly. After a few minutes, 2 security guards came running down the hall and entered the office. There was more yelling and commotion, but then things got quiet. Tones got softer. A few more minutes and the guards walked out on either side of a sweat-drenched and pale-faced, the red flush now drained away, Agnes, and escorted her out the front lobby and into the elevator. An uncomfortable laugh and some "what the fuck was that?" rose up from the group as they began to disperse. Nicholas, one of the managers, came over, placed his hand on my shoulder, and said I could go home for the day and decompress if I wanted. I thanked him, said I'd go to my office and see how I felt. Sitting down at my desk, I looked at my phone for the first time since the park to find an unexpected text from my ex-girlfriend, Rosanna. It read, "I need to see you." A little backstory to give the proper context of the following exchange. I'd been seeing Rosanna for about 8 months and I thought things were going well. She was my every weekend date night girl. Dinner, drinks, movie. I thought we were on the same page. I'd found a true soulmate. Then one week on a Thursday night, I get a text saying she needs some space and wants some time to herself, so she wouldn't be going out with me the coming weekend or any other weekend after that. At least not until she had time to see how she felt about things. It was a bomb dropped without warning, and when I tried to call her to get some clarity, have a discussion, she didn't answer, texting back that she wasn't ready to talk about it. Needless to say, it was quite a blow, especially when 2 weeks later she started posting photos of herself at multiple events, concerts, baseball games, and dance clubs, even a goddamn rodeo with some dude named Chance. We never had another conversation, no texts, no nothing. I was simply dropped like an afterthought. So this message was as shocking to me as the one that dumped me. When I texted back, realizing a swipe too late that responding right away was a chump move. Now was the answer. I had been told I could leave, was my first thought, but quickly reasoned that I shouldn't be so accessible, so "I'm at work" was my posture. The little dots danced in the typing bubble, building anticipation as the anxious minutes ticked off the clock. Then the dots clicked off. Okay, I thought, the anticipation releasing its grip on my frayed nerves. Then suddenly, "Tell them you're sick or something," popped up on the screen. I stopped myself, thought through what was happening, steadied my breath, then replied, "What's this about?" "I need to see you," came back. My fingers ran across the keys faster than rational thought and shot back, "Why?" "I need to see you now," she persisted. I thought a moment, then went in another direction. "Is everything okay?" "It will be when I see you," she replied. The words struck like a knife through my nervous system, but I steadied my hand. "I'll let you know when I can get out of here," I typed. The dots did their dance and up popped the words I'd fantasized about for weeks. "I made a big mistake. I'm sorry. I realize the only space I need is one with you in it." My fingers melted into the keyboard. "Where are you?" I typed. "My apartment," she replied. My answer was already on the screen before her text arrived. "On my way." I felt my heart beating hard in my chest, breathing fast, shallow. I fumbled around for my work bag, tipped over a cup of coffee on my desk, the cold, stale liquid pooling under keyboard, papers, and station mat. But I kept moving, ignoring the mess. Then a sudden commotion erupted from the hall outside. My office mate Terry and I stepped quickly to the door just as a familiar scream exploded and the bright red face, almost purple now, of Agnes came crashing past, her shoulders rebounding off a glass partition and ramming into a modular divider, toppling it over. We poked our heads around the corner to see Agnes slamming into more cubicle walls as she went, knocking them over and sending the workers inside scrambling for cover, some being crushed and pinned, others attempting to scale the dividers on the other side of their workstations. Terry and I looked at each other. "I'm fucking out of here," Terry said, then darted off in the opposite direction toward the elevators. I turned back to the tumult to see one brave worker I recognized as Stan rush at Agnes, swinging some kind of metal bar. It struck her shoulder, but she seemed unfazed as she swung her fist directly into the center of his face, dropping him to the floor like an empty husk. I jerked my head back inside the doorframe as Agnes huffed and puffed, red bulging eyes scanning for another target. When I was brave enough to peek out again, she was raising a printer up to slam it down on Stan's head. At that, I tore off in the same direction as Terry, stealing a panicked look back to make sure Agnes didn't follow. When I got to the lobby, the elevator doors were closed. Several co-workers, Harold and Chico, were there, eyes pleading with the floor tracker. The numbers weren't moving. It was like all the elevators had stopped. Meanwhile, the echoes of Agnes's deranged shrieks and bellows were growing closer. I went around the corner and located the stairwell entrance. "Guys," I said, and we all slipped inside. We started our way down the 10 flights of stairs. A few floors in, Harold, middle-aged, slightly overweight, was already wheezing as he spoke. "What the fuck is happening with Agnes?" "Where are the guards who let her out?" Chico added. The rush of panic brought on by Agnes's rampage mixed with the violence I had witnessed in the park earlier in the day. I felt a creeping anxiety growing with each step down the stairwell, my leg muscles tightening, burning, threatening to paralyze me. I tried to picture Rosanna's face, the smile that would greet me when I finally made it to her. It kept me from succumbing to the suffocating fear. There was a loud bang from the door several floors above us, the floor we'd just left, and the insane guttural howl of Agnes's voice. "I saw you, you chicken shits, shitty chicken shit cowardly men!" Her footsteps pounded down the steps behind us, and her booming threats continued to echo through the stairwell. "Why are you running? What are you scared of? I'm just a girl!" Harold had fallen behind as Chico and I moved as fast as we could without tripping over each other. The violent pounding grew closer. Then I heard Harold scream, followed by a loud thud of something heavy striking the handrail next to me. My eyes caught the terror in Harold's face as his limp body careened off and fell down the landing out of sight. The sickening sound of crushing bones soon fractured the air from below. Then a metallic pounding of Agnes's feet rose up from above us again, growing louder and closer. I could see the exit sign above the door just one more flight below. Relief. Then Chico lost his footing and went down face first, almost taking me with him. I stopped, reached down for his shoulder, and came up with a handful of blood. Then the weight of Agnes's massive frame rounded the corner just above me. I bounded down the last flight of stairs as fast as I could, not looking back for fear her flailing paws would be upon me. My bloody hand slipped off the exit bar, slamming my shoulder against the door and sending me flying out, breaking into a sprint as the warm breeze of the open air rushed against my face. I didn't look back for at least a block and a half. No more Agnes in sight, so I slowed down a bit, chest burning. I gasped for air, suddenly straining to fill my lungs. I had no idea what happened to Chico. I could only assume Agnes had stopped to attack him, and that's why I was free. I felt terrible, but I had no intention of venturing back to find the answer to the theory. I turned my focus to Rosanna, had to get to her, checked the street signs to orient myself, and started north toward Midtown. The boulevard was mostly empty, unusually so for the middle of a workday. I scanned the area, realizing there were crumpled lumps strewn all about. It took a moment to realize what I was seeing. These were bodies. There were cars stopped in the middle of the street, mostly abandoned, but one had a body hanging from the driver's side window as if it had been pulled halfway out and beaten. It was hauntingly quiet. At the other end of the block, I could see several groups of people milling about in packs, mobs of women. And then, looking at the bodies slumped on the ground, I realized they were all men, and there were children. One of the gatherings seemed to notice me. Someone whistled to get my attention as they started moving in my direction. I immediately started fast walking, trying to make like I didn't hear their shouts and whistles, finally launching into another lung-burning sprint when I felt them closing the gap between us. Rounding the next block, I was met by much the same, but here a group of maybe a dozen women, it was women, yes, had a younger man surrounded, and they were grabbing at him, pulling his hair, ripping pieces of his clothing from his body. The way they had him was keeping him off balance, but he was struggling hard. I slowed down, trying not to be noticed. I ducked into an opening between two buildings and followed it back to an alleyway. I carefully peered around the corner before entering. It was mostly empty, save for someone lying half covered in a cardboard box and dirty blankets. I checked my phone to see a text from Rosanna. "Something's happening outside. I'm afraid. It's dangerous on the streets. Most of the internet is down. My Wi-Fi's dead. Are you okay?" I began to reply when a terrifying voice boomed out from the passageway I'd entered through. "This way! I saw him go in here!" I took a hard step and found myself rooted to the ground, paralyzed by a sudden indecision which way to go. One way a dead end, the other back to the street. I jumped as a raspy voice called out, "Psst! Here! Over here!" I turned to see an old lady with long, thin hair, clumps missing, her face dark with dirt and soot, waving me over. She raised up the blankets, motioning for me to climb under them. The uproar from the breezeway launched me into the offered space. The old lady covered me and struggled up to her feet. Then I realized I may have jumped into a trap. I felt the weight and tension of a group of people as they approached. The voices, female, gruff, raspy, raw from screaming. The old lady's voice coughed up. "That way! He went back that way! Hurry!" I listened as the clamor of the women and their heavy energy moved away. The blanket pulled back from over my head, the ragged elder's shockingly calm face staring back. "They're gone. Coast is clear, Sonny." "Thank you," I sighed. The weight lifted from my chest. "What do they want? What's happening?" "Women, and they're pissed," she cackled. "I don't understand. What women? Pissed about what?" I asked. "All of them, apparently," she said. "I'm sure you can guess what they're pissed about." "I can't, actually. What do you mean?" "Well, it's a man's world, isn't it? The women are merely sharing space in the male domain, serving man in one way or the other. You know the story in the Bible. Adam was lonely and God took Adam's rib to create a companion, a creature with no agency of its own except to serve her genetic donor, her master. Okay, that's just a story. A ridiculous one. Women have all the rights of any man. Shit, in some ways, more nowadays." "Oh, really?" she glared. "So what are you saying? All the women are rising up, turning on the men?" "Children, too." She lowered her head. "What do you mean?" "I saw some of those same girls that just ran down the alley murdering their own children in the street earlier. One of them took a baby in a car seat, sat it in the middle of the road and ran it over, back and forth, again and again." "What the fuck?" I let out weakly. "It was horrible. Just horrible." "What about you? Why aren't you doing the same thing? You protected me. Why aren't you with them?" I asked. "It's funny. I don't remember a lot of the last 5 years. I started forgetting where I was, who I was. There were always voices. So many voices. I think I've been out here yelling at those voices all that time. But last night, I had a fever. I was sweating. I threw up what little food was in my stomach and my skin burned." She took a few steps toward the center of the alley and looked around. "But when I woke up this morning, I remembered my name. The voices were silent, gone. Everything was clear." "What is it?" "What is what, son?" "Your name. You remembered your name." "Angela. Angela Hooper." "Thank you, Angela. If it weren't for you." "It's okay. I have a son about your age. Haven't seen him since my mind started to go." "Do you remember where you lived? Where he lived? Your family?" "Yes. Now that you mention it, I do. It's a good ways from here. North Cross, in the suburbs." "Maybe we can help each other, Angela. You see, I'm trying to get to someone too. She's in the city, on the way out to the suburbs. We could get her, then head to North Cross, find your family, get out of the city, away from the madness." "She?" "Yes, she. My girlfriend." She's a woman, son. That doesn't seem wise." "I was just texting her before all this started. She was fine. I need to get her out of the city to safety." "I'm afraid she's gonna have this disease too. What did you say your name was?" "Callum." "She's gonna have this disease, Callum." "What do you mean by disease?" "The way these women are acting, it's not rational. It's not a reaction. I had it, like a virus or something, only my brain was all wrong and somehow it affected me different. If she's in the city, most likely she has it too." I talked to her. She seemed like herself. Here, I'll text her now. I hit Rosanna's text chain and quickly ran off. "Something's happening downtown where I'm at. Everything okay where you are? Have you seen anything online about it?" A tense 30 seconds later. "Oh my God, are you okay? What's going on? Everything's fine here. Haven't seen anything online. What is it?" I held the screen up to Angela. "See, everything's okay. Whatever's happening seems to just be down here." Angela squinted at the screen and shook her head and grunted, doubtful. I sent off a response to ease Rosanna's fears. "I'm okay, don't worry. On my way." "Angela, please, I need your help getting out of here." "Yes, you do." "So you'll help? We can find your family." "I'll do what I can." "Thank you, Angela." We decided to wait for nightfall. Hopefully the darkness would make it easier to pass unnoticed. I let Rosanna know I was going to be held up. She said she'd looked on TV and they were talking about a riot that was happening downtown. I spent my time hiding under the blankets that had saved my ass earlier, while Angela went out to find a grocery cart to aid in our escape. The sounds I heard as the day dragged on were unsettling and at times unbearable. Screams that went on for hours on end. Slow, painful torture. Loud crashes, windows smashing, the maniacal echo of female laughter playing like a soundtrack above it all. When the darkness finally held the calamity in its cold embrace, we set out. Myself tucked beneath the blankets at the bottom of a shopping cart, Angela pushing as best she could, slow and erratic. I took advantage of a small tear in the thick blanket and hollowed out a perfectly concealed eye hole through which to keep a lookout for potential threats. Didn't want to be caught blind if things got dicey. Angela was frail, couldn't count on any physical help from her. The first block or so was mostly deserted. Several fading bonfires dotted the junk-strewn street. I saw office furniture, car seats, tires, the burned-out husks of automobiles, and what looked to be human remains in the smoldering ashes. Several small groups of young women rushed past us screaming and making guttural sounds I could only liken to primitive war cries as we creeped up the block, struggling to get around the debris-laden street. They ignored Angela. At the intersection of a main thoroughfare, we came upon a large gathering of excited revelers. I recognized their savage whoops and vicious cries of blood-curdling excitement from the long afternoon. Several groups were gathered in different areas along the block. Stacks of what at first appeared to be large hunks of meat revealed themselves to be mutilated bodies, all of them men, stripped nude and relieved of their members. There was a tall pile of the orphaned phalluses where each of the groups congregated, hacking and ripping at the corpses, adding to their fleshy victory monuments. I breathed an audible sigh of relief when we reached the end of the block and crossed over to a smaller side street. We were moving away from the city center now. The streets were quiet, no sign of attacks and violence. A few cars rolled slowly by. From my vantage point in their headlights, I couldn't make out if the drivers were male or female. We passed 3 or 4 blocks when the staccato cracks of gunfire shattered the calm. As the shots grew closer, we came upon a police car stopped in the middle of an intersection. The lights were flashing and the doors open. An officer stood a good 10 feet from the vehicle, firing their gun into it, stopping to reload at one point and continuing. Angela struggled to force the cart up onto the sidewalk to make some space between the commotion and ourselves as we passed. Coming up on the situation, I could make out a female officer. Short cropped hair, older than I was used to seeing on the streets. She was firing into the vehicle, blasting the body of another officer that appeared from what was left of him to be a large black man. The officer paid no attention as we ambled past, just calmly reloaded and continued to fire. When we were halfway up the next block, a loud racket broke out from the way we'd just come. The tap-tap-tapping of more gunfire. From my position, I couldn't see the source of the barrage. The cart rolled to an abrupt stop. "What is it?" I called up to Angela in a loud whisper. She tugged hard on the cart and the street behind us swung into view. "Men!" she said. I watched as several men came out into the street, trading gunfire with the officer. She moved from one side to the other, her back fortified against the cruiser. She raised up and let off a volley. One of the men went down. The other man moved back to the corner of the alley wall from which he'd come. The methodical cop pressed her advantage, moving toward him, shots pinning him behind the wall. A sudden burst of pops and bangs crackled out from the other side of the street. She twitched and jerked and collapsed like a rag doll face first into the pavement. Then another small group of about 5 men flooded out to the street from the direction of the gun bursts and began kicking and taunting the lifeless corpse. "Angela," I wheezed, struggling not to cough. "Turn us around. We've got to get out of here." The wheels squeaked around and we slowly began moving up the street again. The bravado from behind us quickly disappeared into the distance, signaling that the posse was moving the other way toward the madness we'd left at the center of town. We continued slowly up the mostly deserted streets until finally we reached Rosanna's block, the canopy at the entrance to her building gaining slowly in the distance. We rolled to a stop at the steps and I lifted myself up from the pile of blankets, scanning the street around us before climbing out. "Thank you, Angela. I'll run up and get her." Be right back. It's awfully quiet. No lights in the whole building, she pointed out. I hadn't noticed, but she was right. Lights appeared to be out on the whole block. I looked up to Rosanna's window on the 4th floor, light flickering against the drapes and the ceiling. She's there, I pointed out to Angela. Angela looked at me and shook her head, a worried frown on her cracked lips. I nodded and lurched up the steps to the entrance. The door had been propped open with a battered umbrella. I slipped inside, keeping the umbrella lodged in the frame, and headed up the stairs. I stepped onto Rosanna's floor. The sudden rattle of a door latch clutched at my pounding heart. My gaze met another pair of eyes in the shadows staring back from a cracked open door frame. It wasn't clear if it was male or female, the stare vacant, neither hate nor fear. I kept moving to Rosanna's door at the end of the hall and tapped lightly. There was a soft shuffle from inside, wait at the door. Then the latch slowly opened, careful not to make a sound. Rosanna's face appeared, slightly haunted with the barest smile of relief etched into the shadowy grooves. "Come in," she whispered. I obliged her request, considering it better to explain the plan inside where we wouldn't be heard. My heart jumped as I felt her fingers slide in around mine. Then she led me across the room to her bed. Her figure shimmered through the sheer nightgown, illuminated by the light of a half-dozen candles set about the room. On the nightstand, dresser, several scattered around the floor. As her long legs folded down onto the bed, I began to speak. "Rosanna, we have to go." But she cut me off with a curt but gentle shush. She took my other hand and guided me down to the edge of the bed beside her. "I'm so glad you're here. I was worried you wouldn't make it. Worried I'd miss my chance. I'd never get to tell you." She trailed mid-sentence. "Tell me what?" I asked. "How sorry I am for the way that I've been acting, for pushing you away," she said, the light flickering off the moisture in her welling eyes. "Honey, it's okay. I'm here now. That's all that matters," I consoled her. "But we've got to get out of here." Once again, she cut me off, insistent. "It's just that I felt so strongly. I was falling hard for you, and it scared me. It just happens to me that way. When I fall in love, something happens inside of me. It's a fear of abandonment, I think." The admission made me forget our situation, took me out of the horror, and bound me in the moment with her words. "When I fall in love." I raised my hand and placed it softly on her shoulder, and she rubbed her cheek against it. "My father was never around. He came in and out of our lives so many times when I was growing up. He'd show up, and as soon as I began to feel safe, he'd be gone again. And the last time, when I was a freshman in high school, it was permanent. I never saw or heard from him again. Apparently he moved to Australia or something. When you grow up like that, well, I get scared." "It's okay. At least you have a handle on it. Understand it's a thing. You're light years ahead of most," I said. "Most people are all twisted up inside and don't even know it." "You wouldn't do that, would you, Callum?" "What, hun? Leave me?" "Of course not." I began to feel uneasy at the comfort we were falling into on the bed. She leaned in and kissed me. Thoughts of the day's events rose up, making me anxious. "Okay, hun, we need to get going." Something shifted in her eyes. "You're leaving?" "No, we're leaving. Together. I came to get you. We're going to get out of the city." "We? You brought someone with you? Others?" "Just one. An old lady that helped me get out of downtown." "A woman?" "Yes." "How can you trust her? I read some people talking online before the power went out, and it was women, specifically women, doing the killing." I nodded, more images from the day flashing in my head. "It would appear so. That's why we need to get out of the city." "But she's a woman." "I know. She was schizophrenic or something, but whatever happened to all the other women fixed her head. I know, it doesn't make sense, but she saved me, so I know she's good." "I don't trust her." "What if she gives me what all the others got? You said she had it." "Rosanna, we can't stay here. That mob is going to make its way up here at any moment. We need to get out of the city." She tightened her grip, pulling her body against mine, her face to my face, eye to eye. We didn't speak. Then she kissed me long and hard, her tongue reaching desperately for mine. Her hands moved up and down my back and to my hips and to my belt. She grabbed it and yanked it loose. The passion and the violence of the day mixed badly in my head, and I pulled away, her grip desperately holding on. "Rosanna, we can't do this. We've got to get moving." She thrust her mouth against mine again, and I was forced to pull back, harder to break her grip. "What's wrong?" she said, a noticeable anger furrowing her brow. I took her hands and removed them from my shoulder and waist, stood up from the bed. "Honey, our lives are in danger. I just can't do this." "I knew you'd ruin everything," she hissed. "What does that mean?" "Nothing. It's fine. "Rosanna, it's not you. I'm so happy to be here with you. It's just, you haven't seen the things I've seen today. We just have to go." "Sure, I get it." I took a deep breath. She seemed to be calming down. "Grab what you can carry. That's about all we have room for," I instructed, a sense of reason coming back to the situation. I noticed her bathroom and a practical concern jumped to my attention. "I've got to stay hidden in the shopping cart. I should really use the toilet before we take off." I started for the door when she yelled out, "No!" But I was already turning the knob. I pushed the door open and it stopped suddenly against something inside. "You can't go in there!" she barked, her tone now twisted and dark like a woman possessed. I leaned in to look around the doorframe. There was a naked body on the floor, a man covered in blood, the entire bathroom doused in red. My eyes followed the trail of punctures, slits, and tears up the torso to the head. The face, a face I recognized, Chance, the guy she'd posted all over her socials after she dropped me, his cold, empty eyes staring into infinity. Fuck, I fucked up. I turned to find Rosanna standing at the edge of the bed, the glint of candle flames flickering off the blade of a large carving knife in her hand. "He was gonna leave me, just like you." I stared back, silent. At this point, I knew there was no reasoning. Rosanna was gone. Whatever disease had infected all the women in downtown was in the room with me now. "I wanted to make love to you, feel you inside of me when I stuck this blade in your neck. But no, you just had to ruin a beautiful moment like you always do, like men always do." "Rosanna," I started, "and now you want to leave me. Well, I won't let you." I sprung toward the front door in anticipation and she flew at me, blades streaking across the candlelight. A flash of blinding pain shot through my back and shoulder. My feet gave way and I stumbled, coming to an abrupt stop against the door. I steadied myself, raising up and turning back to face Rosanna as she stamped back and forth, grinding her teeth and making some bizarre growling sound with her throat. I could feel the blood running from my shoulder down my back, my shirt saturating. "You see, Callum, you're looking at this like, oh, all the women went insane and they turned dangerous, violent. But that's not what this is. Not at all. This is nature making an adjustment. No different than what men have done from the beginning. Take by brute force, dominate through violence, subjugate with brutality. But things have changed over the millennia. You men today, you're not what you used to be. You've gotten soft, weak, lost your evolutionary advantage. All we're doing is flipping the script, correcting a Darwinistic misstep. It's not a disease or a virus. This is nature at work." My eyes tracked the blade in her hand as she paced and ranted. I didn't bother responding. Nothing I had to say was going to matter now. I mentally clocked the door handle just above my right hand, judging if I could grab it and unlock the deadbolt before Rosanna plunged the knife into my back or my head or God knows. Desperate, I sought to keep her thoughts occupied. "Rosanna, how do you know all of that? About the others? What's happening?" Her frantic pace came to a sudden halt, a pensive look on her face. Her expression softened, the shade of her familiar effervescence returning. "I had a terrible fever last night. My thoughts were rushing and confused, and I heard the words. So many voices in my head. Angry, oppressed, screaming, demanding." The confusion on her face triggered a reflex in me. I bolted forward, throwing my shoulder into her chest and sending her flying back into the dinner table, knocking a chair to the ground and loudly jolting the cups and plates. A vase of flowers launched into the wall and came crashing down. It all happened in an instant and my stomach turned to knots as she ragdolled to the floor. I swung around and grabbed the deadbolt, turned the latch and pulled the door, but it didn't move. I fumbled for the knob lock and twisted and pulled again. This time the door gave way, but before I could open it wide enough to slip through, my ears were split by the ring of a banshee wail as the weight of Rosanna's body slammed into me, sending a sting of intense pain burning through the base of my neck as my head and torso met the frame. I reached for my neck and felt warm blood gush against my palm. Suddenly, the door swung into me, some force shoving it into my bloody back. I let out a yelp just as it pushed again, harder, forcefully, and Angela's wiry form burst through the opening and launched right over me, bringing down a large bat that struck Rosanna's clavicle just as she attempted to lurch forward with a stabbing gait. A sickening crack echoed through the room and Rosanna folded. I squinted through the agony, watching as the old woman furiously raised and smashed her club down on Rosanna's skull, skull again and again and again, until there was no skull left to smash, just a pulp of meat, bone, and hair swimming in a black soup of coagulated blood. She stopped for a moment, her body heaving, then let out a scream of animal ecstasy and began working on the rest of what had been Rosanna's body with the rage and fury of a rabid beast. I sat up and watched. Gone was the frail octogenarian with whom I'd creeped up the streets and sidewalks, replaced by the very madness we'd sought to escape. If you have enjoyed this program, please like, review, and share. Spread the word. Help us build an audience to change the future. The Horror Eternal presents Bone of My Bones. Written, produced, and performed by Roy Burdine. Sound design and mix by Mark Labib. The Horror Eternal and We Are Not Dead are copyright 2026 Roy Burdine. This has been a Spiral Opus audio production. Also from Spiral Opus, don't miss Mindraker, Background Anger, the story of a psychic assassin on a mission from God. Season 1 available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
Monster Forge. We make monsters.